If you had 1 million barrels of crude oil just lying about, what would you do with it? I mean, you'd probably sell it and make loads of money, right? Well, this is the amount of oil the world gets through in one day, and the aviation industry is responsible for about 8% of that. And it makes sense, seeing as nearly 100,000 airplanes take off each day. For decades, kerosene-based fuels have been used to move people and cargo around the world, but it's taken its toll. Last year alone, the aviation industry was responsible for releasing nearly 1 billion tons of carbon dioxide into the already polluted atmosphere. Alright, we get it, we need to do something, otherwise Greta Thunberg's gonna have a real crash out. But the planet definitely needs our help. But what if there was a new way to power commercial aircraft? Well, hydrogen might be the answer we've been looking for. Airbus definitely seem to think so. So let's have a look at hydrogen propulsion for commercial aircraft, its benefits, drawbacks, but ultimately why it could be the future of global aviation. Before we go any further, we need to understand how this technology works. And before you click away, I'm not a science teacher, so I'll try to explain it as simply as I can. The first way hydrogen could be used as fuel is combustion. When hydrogen burns completely with oxygen, the only product formed is water. No carbon dioxide produced, and less harmful nitrogen oxides as well. Modified jet engines could be used to harness the power of hydrogen in a similar way to existing jet engines, and thrust be generated through the expulsion of hot gases out the back of the engine. A good example of this is Airbus's A380 demonstrator. Even though Airbus has ditched the hydrogen-powered flight test platform, it remains as a good example to explain how the technology works. The other way is through fuel cells. In simple terms, fuel cells work by reverse electrolysis of hydrogen, again forming only water as a byproduct. The electricity generated by the fuel cell needs to be converted from direct current to alternating current using an inverter, which can then be sent directly to the electric motors, which drive propellers or rotors depending on the aircraft type. Again, Airbus had planned to use its A380 demonstrator to test this technology, and has since decided that its primary source of propulsion will be fuel cells, not combustion, because fuel cells are more efficient than simple combustion, so obviously this would be a better option. The same can be said about hydrogen vehicles. While it's possible to have a hydrogen combustion engine, harmful nitrogen oxides are produced, whereas fuel cells are again more efficient, as well as not producing harmful byproducts. By this point, you're probably wondering about batteries. There are a few simple reasons why this would not work well with large commercial planes. Number one being weight. I'll give you an example. A Tesla Model X can weigh up to 2.5 tons, with a fifth of that being batteries alone. At the moment, lithium-ion batteries contain the most energy density of any battery, but hydrogen can store over 100 times more energy per unit of mass. For batteries to be on par with hydrogen fuel cells, huge battery packs would have to be carried, decreasing payload, range, and efficiency. The second reason is to do with safety. Huge battery packs delivering large amounts of power to rotors could heat up and experience thermal runaway, where a battery heats up so much that it discharges uncontrollably and fucks up the circuits, and of course the engines. What's worse, it could cause a catastrophic fire in the confined space of a cabin. As I've already mentioned, Airbus is leading the way for hydrogen-powered aircraft through its ZeroE program, with Airbus aiming to have it commercially viable by 2040. They originally planned 3 concepts: 1 turbofan, 1 turboprop, and 1 blender wing design. 2 turbofan-powered concepts have the ability to carry 200 passengers, both with ranges of over 2,000 nautical miles, which isn't a lot, I'll be honest. But new innovations require time for refinement, and I have no doubt this number will increase over time. The turboprop concept will be primarily targeted at regional routes, with the ability to hold around 100 passengers and a maximum range of 1,000 nautical miles. But as previously mentioned, fuel cell technology is potentially a better choice than hydrogen turbines, and Airbus has shifted its focus to fuel cell propulsion, and in 2024 announced additional integrated test benches for integration of fuel cell technology into its designs. A few weeks ago at the Paris Air Show, Airbus and MTU Aero Engines signed an agreement to collaborate together on fuel cell propulsion. This strongly suggests Airbus are on the right track to develop fully hydrogen-powered aircraft for 2040, with MTU engineer Dr. Stefan Weber stating, "Partnering with Airbus opens up the possibility to jointly address both technology maturity and platform integration aspects. Our joint efforts in the years to come are the first step in paving the way for potential product development in the future." ZeroAvia is a small startup whose goal is to retrofit small aircraft with hydrogen electric powertrains using a combination of fuel cells and batteries, and in 2023 flew a 19-seat Dornier 228 with hopes of increasing that number to between 40 and 80 passengers by 2030. Another key player who was involved in hydrogen propulsion was Universal Hydrogen, who were focusing on the modular approach. This involved the use of modular hydrogen capsules, which could be loaded and unloaded from aircraft using standard freight handling equipment by utilizing existing freight networks. Unfortunately for Universal Hydrogen, they burned through their investment funds and closed down in 2024, but they did manage to complete a successful test flight. using a Bombardier Dash 8 running on 100% hydrogen propulsion. Now's the part you're probably the most interested in, the potential challenges of hydrogen propulsion. We all know that after landing and before takeoff, an aircraft needs to be refueled. At the minute, airport refueling infrastructure includes fuel farms, storage tanks, hydrant systems, pipelines, and trucks. With hydrogen, however, issues start beyond infrastructure, with production of hydrogen itself being the major problem. At the minute, nearly 95% of all hydrogen production is steam reforming of natural gas, which releases greenhouse gases and of course uses a ton of energy. The whole point of hydrogen propulsion is to reduce emissions, so unless there is a clean way of making hydrogen, we're kinda stuck. But there is, it's called electrolysis, and it involves taking water, or H2O, and splitting it into its elements, hydrogen and oxygen. This process requires electricity, but if the electricity used is renewable, then we essentially have clean hydrogen. The issue is that this accounts for less than 1% of global hydrogen production, and the aviation industry would need hundreds of thousands of tons of green hydrogen each year. So the obvious solution would be to scale up green hydrogen production using electrolysis. So using larger electrolyzers and more of them would increase the amount of green hydrogen produced, but the problem is cost. Building industrial hydrogen facilities would cost a huge amount of money, and to many governments and companies, the initial investment may not be worth the reward. The next issue is storage and transport. Liquid hydrogen has to be used, as gaseous hydrogen takes up way too much space. But to do this, extremely low temperatures and higher pressures are needed, requiring specialized tanks, pipes, and valves. All of this increases cost, as there are logistical challenges and inefficiencies that make it economically unviable to transport liquid hydrogen, and yet more money would be spent retrofitting airports with this infrastructure to ensure correct storage and movement of the fuel. Hydrogen refueling is also slower than traditional Jet A1, leading to longer turnaround times for airlines. For many low-cost carriers, such as Ryanair and EasyJet, minimizing ground time means the aircraft is in the air for as long as possible, allowing the airline to make the most of the already thin profit margins. All this hydrogen infrastructure may only be available to larger airports, as smaller regional airports may not be able to afford this. On top of all this is safety. Hydrogen is extremely flammable. To account for this, regulatory and certification requirements would require both the fuel and the aircraft to be certified, which could take years. Keep in mind that modular capsules, which I mentioned earlier, would be a much better option. While hydrogen is definitely the fuel of the future, significant infrastructure changes and adaptations would be required, but it has to start somewhere. With the introduction of Airbus's ZeroE program, short-haul hydrogen aircraft could lead the way for hydrogen propulsion being economically viable, but this would require significant government input on a global scale, and maybe at the minute, sustainable aviation fuel is the way to go? Who knows? Let me know down in the comments what you think, and give me a little feedback on the video. If you enjoyed it, then here's another video you might like. Alright, I'll see you over there.